And we're back. And Frank Knight is with us. Frank,
Hi.
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Right, and you were telling me actually some of the stuff that some of the facts that you were relaying to me from the many Canadians don't know Canadian facts about World Wars One and Two.
Oh, definitely. Yes, I've always been interested from my high school days in England because my father and 6 uncles fought in the First World War.
Wow.
And all came through without a scratch, which is amazing. And I've read such a lot. I know there are people out there who have maybe more expertise than I am, but I still find it very interesting that the Canadians don't really know the little unknown facts, like who was the last Allied soldiers who died in the First World War. It was a Canadian.
The last
Allied soldier who died in the First World War was a Canadian.
Is that right? I didn't know
and
that.
would you believe, poor guy, it was only 2 minutes to 11, but on the morning of the armistice, November the 11th, they still went out on patrol because they were still pushing against the Germans who were retreating at that time, which was at Mons. And looking at it, actually started with Amiens, and a lot of people don't know about Amiens because Vimy Ridge, and rightly so, is almost always spoken of as a Canadian-British triumph, and it's overshadowed Amiens, but Amiens was a sweeter victory in the fact that it started the breakthrough that was required, and also it was the first time overall command was in the hands of a Canadian general, which was Arthur Currie.
Really?
Yeah, it's Julian Byng, the British general, had been in charge overall at Vimy. Arthur Currie was there as one of the divisional commanders. And so, along with the Canadian... So it was an all-Canadian event, was Vimy. But the Amiens one was, of course, Canadian Corps, Australian Corps, elements of the British Fourth Army, and some elements from the French Army. And they broke the German line, finally, into the open country. They went 12 miles. And matter of fact, they had to slow down because they had no reserves coming up.
Really?
This was a problem in the First World War, the loss of men, etc. But it did lead. It's called the 100 Days after the Battle of Amiens, August the 8th, 1918. And the German army suffered its worst defeat in that war. And that's the thing that a lot of Canadians don't know about, that the Canadian troops, as always, give themselves, the courage and the determination to see the job through.
And the Canadian troops really have been and always and are still to this day respected big time around the world. Am I
There's a
right?
spirit there amongst the Canadian people. And I've travelled from coast to coast in Canada, and although I wasn't born here, I am a Canadian. I wish my granddad had come out here. But, the Canadians have always gone in and finished the job and done the job to the best of their ability, which has usually been a very high level of, I should say, expectation, and they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
In that 100 days, between August the 8th to November the 11th, the Canadians at that time suffered 46,000 casualties in 100 days, of which 12,000 were killed.
46,000 casualties in 100 days.
Of which 12,000 were killed. And that represents 20% of all the Canadian casualties, or deaths I should say, in the First World War.
Wow.
We had a loss of...
Why was that 100 days such a...
Because we had the Germans on the run in the First World War. And it was a breakthrough. As you know, we see a lot of pictures of the First World War where everybody's stuck in trenches, the mud and that. It wasn't all mud and trenches. The line stretched from the sea in Belgium right the way through to the border of Switzerland. And there were parts where if you could break the line, then there was the open fields beyond, and that's what happened.
Wow.
And the Canadian cavalry swung into action too. A lot of people forget we had men on
Did you know
horses
this
in the
stuff,
cavalry.
Hugh?
I knew that there was cavalry involved.
Oh, yeah. There was cavalry charges by the Strathcona Horse and the Royal Canadian Dragoons, as well as British and Australian cavalry. And the last cavalry charge of the First World War was done by Calgary Light Horse in October 1918.
Really?
Where they charged across a field as a nest of machine guns, would you believe? I mean, they realised that, of course, you couldn't 10 horses against machine guns, but again, it had to be done, and they did. And as a matter of fact, there were some survivors. I mean, talk about charge of the Light Brigade, So these are interesting facts. And one of the interesting facts, of course, is the fact that the last Allied soldier was the Canadian George Price, who was shot by a German sniper at 2 minutes to 11.
Wow.
And they were trying to clean out the houses there at Cambrai. And they got into the streets. They were into the street fighting by then. And an interesting thing when I looked at my books again, I've got quite a library, as you can imagine, was the fact that the last Canadian VC of the First World War, he died on November the 2nd, 1918.
And for those listeners that may not be familiar with VC...
That's Victoria Cross.
Victorian
Which is
Cross.
the highest award. Even to this day, we have our own style of Victoria Cross. It's called the Canadian Victoria Cross. And I haven't read this book for a while, but I've got quite a nice, good book of the Victoria Cross winners of Canadian.
Now, speaking of medals, Frank, I understand that you have a monologue.
Yes.
And did you write this monologue yourself? Or?
No, I picked it up on a trip back to England. It was written about 25, 30 years ago. There was the kind of remembrance of the 60th anniversary of the First World War. And as I say, I remember growing up as a kid seeing all the veterans at that time, and they'd wear the medals, etc. And because I said my father and 6 of my uncles were in the First World War. So it came home to me very strongly, although I grew up in the Second World War. And this was one written by a performer in Britain. It has been recorded. And I picked it up. I thought, that's great, because I do a remembrance show. And this, of course, is the memories of the fella talking to his 5 sons.
Sure.
As he recounts his memories. And I'd like to read it now. It's called
Please
Dad's
do, yeah.
Medals. It's also written in the Yorkshire vernacular, so you may not quite catch some of
Come
the
on,
words.
Frank, I've got time for that.
That, of course, is a different accent. Here we go. He was smashing when our dad came home after 2 or 3 pints at the local. He'd sit in the armchair next to the fire, all eloquent and vocal, and talk for hours of the First World War, of Tommies dead and gone. We duck with him as shells whisked past, rejoice at battles won, walk through trenches thick with mud, and learn words like comrade. So on more Sundays came the cry, show us your medals, Dad. He got 5 of them in a box, he'd hand one to each son. 5 pairs of hands caressed them as he described each one. Ha! That's when my leg got smashed, he said, them flaming Jerry snipers. Jackie Ball was killed same day in a place we called Wipers. He was nobbut 18, it's I, a strapping village lad. He was often sadder after we said, show us the medals, Dad. Mind you, his humour were a treat, it wasn't all death and shells. He told us belting yarns about young famous Dardanelles. One cold day in France he captured a German. Och, but bittens, the German cried. That's lucky I've no gloves nor anything, our shivering Dad replied. I thought as he said mittens, Dad explained. We laughed like mad. He told every time we said, show us the medals, Dad. Him and Harry Waterworth stole a pig one night. We got fed up of eating rats, it's time we had a treat. And we gassed rats, and he said, aye, hit yourself a bet on. We chased the pig all round Flanders Fields until it got a sweat on. And Battalion dipped the bread in it. It didn't taste so bad. Aye, tears and laughter's always followed. Show us the medals, Dad. Old chap died a few months back. Us lads didn't cry. We thought, it'll be with Jack and Harry talking army days, no doubt. Our mam gave us a medal each. We'll cherish them with pride. She was as proud as a queen. That's when we really cried. You know, you read of medals auctioned now for paltry sums. It's sad. You can't go selling memories. Nay, we'll keep the medals, Dad. Ooh. I always get a tear in my eye on that one.
Awesome.
Because I think of my father and my uncles and what they went through.
I think there'll be a lot of tears today, Frank.
Yeah.
Actually, on the way over here, I passed through the remembrance ceremony that was happening a couple of blocks away as well.
Yeah, the cenotaph at the City Hall. Yeah, I heard the service on the radio in the car as I was coming over.
It just sort of catching the ambience of it, you know. It's touching, even though I was kind of just traveling through it, and I stopped and.
I've always gone to every Remembrance Day, not only in Britain as I grew up, with my father before he passed on, and of course here in Canada. So I've lived longer in Canada than I lived in Britain, and it's always there. And I think that's why I've, really studied that the fact that what Canada did as a nation. We only had about 8 million people at the time of the First World War, and yet we put over 660,000 men and women into uniform at that time. So
how much? 600,000?
660,000.
Wow.
And I think we've got a lot to be proud of as a nation. And now we're bigger and we're involved with another war, but at the same time, always.
That's like a tenth of our population.
It was, yeah.
That is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, the effort that Canada put into it. And, war is terrible. And I've been in France. One of my brother-in-laws worked for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, so I've been to Vimy. I've been in there and I've looked at the headstones and I've looked at the ages. And as I said, the young fella who got the last Canadian VC, which was just a week before the end of the war, he was only 6 days from his 22nd birthday.
Wow.
That's how old he was.
And of course, a lot used to lie about their age just to get into the army back then.
The youngest that we know of that fought in the First World War, and why we know because he got killed, was 13 years of age.
Wow. And
a lot of them used to go away for the adventure and fun of it, yeah. Yeah, there was boys found out at 15 and 16 and had to be sent back home. Really? Because they were just too young, really. But that was the spirit at that time. And
It's amazing because, it's like picturing my own son who's 17 years old,
Exactly.
and, he's not even able yet to get himself out of bed
Yeah.
by himself without prompting,
Well,
Just to
as I
imagine
said,
that.
I was still in high school when the Korean War was on, and some of the boys I'd played sports with, they went away out. Local regiment was involved in Korea, and I lost 2 of the people. So you're always close to these things, I have a song from the First World War.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you...
It's a song that was written in 1915, but it applies, I think, to any war, even to today, and the way our Canadian troops are all over the world. And it was written by Ivan Novello, and it's called Till the Boys Come Home. Do you want me to sing it now?
Please, Frank,
Okay.
please do. Take us out with that, Frank, and
Okay.
thank you very much for coming here today.
Welcome. You're welcome. They were summoned from the hillside, they were called in from the glen, and the country found them ready at the stirring call for men. Let no tears add to their hardship as the soldiers pass along, and although your heart is breaking, make it sing this cheery song. Keep the home fires burning while your hearts are yearning. Though your lads are far away, they dream of home. There's a silver lining through the dark cloud shining. Turn the dark cloud inside out till the boys come home. God bless you all.
Thank you, Frank. And that was awesome. And a nice little walk through history. And I hope you got some... Did you get some facts there, Hugh, that you hadn't been aware of?
Yeah. Got a few facts there.
Did you know that many people had 660,000?
To put it in context like that there were that many soldiers versus the population of the country really kind of puts it in perspective,
doesn't it?
Because hard to imagine today if we had, I guess it would be 3 million Canadian soldiers
Right.
going into war somewhere. To think of that happening today is just unthinkable. Yeah.
Mind-boggling. So we have our next guest all prompted up and ready to go as well. And welcome to the show, Hurricane Mike Thompson.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Thank you for having me, Hugh. Frank, that was wonderful.
And some of you may already be aware of Hurricane. He had a song called Flags of Freedom, which has gained a lot of accolades. In fact, soldiers overseas have been getting an opportunity to hear this song, and it's kind of like a lot of them are taking it on as their rally song. So Hurricane, what made you decide that you wanted to do a song in that vein, Hurricane?
Well, how can I put this? I guess it's because I just open my eyes and ears and I'm influenced, like Bob Dylan would say. And when you think about stuff and you watch stuff, you eventually come to conclusions. And you have your own thoughts, and sometimes things have to be said. We can't just go through our lives with blinders on and blinkers and not look to the left or the right. There's things all around us that we have to sort of take into consideration and decide how it affects us or affects the people around us. And I wanted to convey a message that, this is real. This isn't pretending. This isn't just Hollywood. This is a real war. And the enemy is one of the most cowardly, deadly enemies that we've probably encountered in human history.
Are you going to do a couple songs for us today, Hurricane?
I sure will.
Yeah?
I'll start off with Flags of Freedom, and then I'll do another one that just sort of underlines what I just spoke about. This is to honor all the troops. Dear Mom and Dad, I hope you get this letter with all the latest news that I'm writing. We're in for changing weather, and in the distant hills I still can hear the fighting. They might send us all to Baghdad from this hellhole they call Afghanistan. What a hard place to be living, and what a hard place to be dying, and what a hard place for a soldier in these lands where no flags of freedom stand. Well, these mountains are so bleak, I don't know why we're here and what's to save. And these ragged peasants never speak, and their tears fall on 10,000 unmarked graves. They seek shelter in the Badlands, and these wretched regions thick with Taliban. What a hard place to be homeless, and what a hard place to be hungry, and what a hard place for a soldier in these lands where no flags of freedom stand. Yes, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I'm far from home in some forsaken land, holding these tears back behind a brave face. But we're here to do our bit, and we don't intend to quit till these lands let flags of freedom stand. Why must a woman hide her beauty and have what she has to say go unheard? Where the laws and strange religions try to change and strip away each holy word, where they denigrate the teachings of the Bible, the Torah and Koran. What a hard place for opinion, and what a hard place for religion, and what a hard place for a soldier in these lands where no flags of freedom stand. Today I rest my rifle in some blood, where the bodies of some battles had been piled. As I stumbled through the mud, I saw a landmine take the life of another small child. Well, I sat down to cry, and I saw tiny spots of blood on my own hands. What a hard place for the killing, and what a hard place for the children, and what a hard place for a soldier in these lands where no flags of freedom stand. Oh, it's fine we got Saddam, but we can't let things rest, and we must fight. And his kind don't give a damn. They detest the West and our whole way of life. Just remember that I love you. I'm 22 and I've become a man. I just hope you'll think of me in that place I'd rather be, where there's peace and liberty, in the true north strong and free, in a land where the flags of freedom stand. Yes, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place, far from home in some forsaken land, holding these tears back behind a brave face. But we're here to do our bit, and we don't intend to quit, or nothing will mean spit in these lands where no flags of freedom stand. Yes, we're here to do our bit, and we don't intend to quit till these lands let flags of freedom stand. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. That song just never seems to get me, Hurricane.
Thank you.
Never seems to. It just seems to.